everyone. Hi. What are you doing? Come on. Molly here for Sustainability Sunday once again on Monday. Today we are going to do something a little bit differently. We are not going to talk about our favorite swaps. Instead, we're going to talk about clothing waste and fast fashion and that sort of thing. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so I have my laptop here to kind of help guide me through it because this type of video I'm still getting used to, and I'm probably going to stumble and ramble a little bit. It might be a little bit all over the place. But I hope that you can stick with me and bear through it because there's some important information in here. So we will start by talking about the US EPA report 2018. They have a lot of really good information in there, and I will put in this little table that I'm going to be talking about and looking at, and at the top you can see it has the years, and you can very clearly see that the generation of how much we are producing is just, and has been just going up so much. And you know, there's a very good reason for that, and it's just because of demand. You know, the only reason companies would put money and resources into making more clothing is because they have the opportunity to make money. There are people who are going to be buying it. Otherwise, it's not like a hot topic, hot idea. It's like pretty straightforward. They wouldn't put money into it if they weren't going to make money from it. And because of that, you can see that the amount that's landfilled is just going up, where of course if we aren't producing as much, we probably aren't going to be throwing as much away. And the amount recycled hardly goes up at all. So really this means that we're producing more and we're just throwing more away. And this could, also mean that there aren't really great recycling programs or ways for people to reuse the clothing that they are buying, which comes down to a couple of things. That could be, a lot of that is the consumer. People tend to want to cycle through clothing really quickly for whatever reason. Clothing has like seasons, and I don't mean like you need a jacket in the winter and maybe shorts in the summer, but like fashion designers and fashion brands come out with new clothing every season, and I think that kind of encourages people to think that they need to be recycling their wardrobe all the time when you really don't need to be. Like, clothing should serve a purpose, and I'm not saying that means you can't buy stuff you like and show. I know people like really express themselves through that, and I'm not saying that you can't do that or you shouldn't do that, but you have to draw the line somewhere because it really is causing a lot of harm on our planet and to people on our planet. And a lot of that is the fast fashion, but it's not just Shein and things like that. It's all plenty of well-known and well-loved brands like Levi's have had plenty of allegations, and I say allegations, but well-founded allegations of human exploitation, child exploitation. Really, at the end of the day, it's just not worth a child having to work and risk their life and just be in these conditions for somebody to have a pair of clothing that they didn't really need. And I think, going back to the recycling thing, if these companies are going to be producing so much clothing, then they need to have a responsibility and in taking care of it and having some sort of, like accountability about what happens to it after. Is it ending up in a landfill? Is it being burned? Or are they encouraging through easy and accessible programs for their consumers and their buyers to give it back to them? And unfortunately they don't, because it ends up being cheaper for them to just produce new clothing than it is for them to maybe repurpose some of the materials that they could have. And a big reason that it's probably so much cheaper is because of the exploitation of the land where they're harvesting the cotton. Cotton is actually pretty destructive as far as the way it's hard, like when it's done excessively especially, it tends to drain a lot of the soil of the nutrients, which we know is a huge problem. And it is associated with so much child labor and just really, really awful working conditions for even adult workers. And of course, not all clothing is made of cotton, but synthetic fibers really are not that much better. And a lot of fast fashion is made of this. So things like nylon, polyester, acrylic, that type of thing. These break down into microplastics. We have to mine the fuel, it's made from fossil fuels, so we have to, use resources to make it, finite resources that we don't have an unlimited amount of to make it, and then people are just throwing it away, and then it's ending up in landfills where all these microplastics and the chemicals that were used to make it are leaching into the environment, and it's ending up, just in the ocean. And only 13% of clothing and shoes were recycled. 13%, that's like basically nothing. The rest of it went to a landfill or it was burned. Just pollutes the environment around it. And I think this one's frustrating too, because it's kind of like the tech waste to me, where like yes, you need clothing, but you don't need clothing in the way that we use it. Nobody's willing to repair their clothes. I shouldn't say nobody. There are plenty of people that are, but typically it's easier, and it's designed this way for it to be easier for you to just throw away whatever it is and go buy a new one, instead of repairing or using it until it really, really can't be used anymore, and then at that point trying to find a different way that you can use it. Because when we think of like clothes serve a purpose, they serve a function, and at the end of the day, that's why we have them. And like I said before, it is used in these other ways, like to express yourself, but the main part of it is it has a function, it has a purpose. So I think it's important to be just more intentional about how we use it. But the good thing is there are some things that we can do that are pretty easy and don't really require a lot of energy or thought, and actually not really money, because buying less clothing obviously will save you money. So of course you can always buy secondhand. You can do this in a thrift store, you can do it online through apps like Poshmark, something like that, aside from just buying less. If you are going to buy new, if you really can't find something secondhand that you're looking for, there are a lot of really great companies that are reusing materials, like Girlfriend Collective, for example. They use a lot of plastic water bottles and fishing line I think they've either collected from that's already been in the environment, or it's diverted from going into the environment, and they use it to make a variety of things. I'm most familiar with their athletic wear because I have some of their sports bras, which are awesome. I love them. So if you are going to buy new, maybe try to buy new from a company that does something like that, instead of just another company that is maybe not making things very ethically or sustainably. And I know I talk about them all the time, but a great place to look for those items is something like Earth Hero, and that's like Girlfriend Collective is on Earth Hero, for example. So they can be a really great place to look. And aside from buying, reuse the things that you already have. If you cannot repair it, repurpose it, cut it up, use it as a rag, or I don't know, there are a bunch of things that I think you can do. Sometimes it may just be getting a little bit creative. I actually used in a gift exchange, I had a scarf wrap thing that I no longer wanted, and I used that as wrapping paper, and then I didn't have to use wrapping paper, and I could repurpose the scarf for something, and then it was kind of like a cool 2-for-1 gift. The person got the gift that was inside the scarf, and they got the scarf too. So there's just a lot of really cool ways that you can get with it. And also extending the life of your clothing as much as possible. So wash stuff less. You don't need to wash something just because it touched your body. For example, full transparency, I am not wearing this shirt all day. I literally put this shirt on to record this video. So I'm going to take this off and hang it back up, because why would I wash something that I put on for like an hour maybe? hardly moved, didn't sweat at all, like that would just be silly. And washing and drying your clothes over and over does actually like wear them. And I say wear, you know, like wear and tear, not wear, of course. So yes, and also drying, like hanging your stuff up to dry versus putting it in the dryer as much as possible. Which, like, talking about washing your clothing, that's the other thing, is they will leach and do leach microplastics, because like what I talked about before, a lot of clothing is made of those synthetic materials that leach microplastics when you wash them. So one thing that you can do is get a Cora ball, and I'll try to remember to link it, and put it in with your washer, and you wash it with your stuff, and it essentially kind of like, I think the microplastics will cling to it, and instead of washing through your thing, but I'm actually not 100% sure on that. But there are other ways you can do that, but that's a simple one. Like some people will install some sort of microplastic filter in their water line, like within their house. That's kind of next level, but the Cora ball I think is something that is a little bit more feasible for everybody. I think they're kind of on the more expensive end of things. I think they're like $30 to $35, but compared to like a new filtration thing in your house, it's going to be probably a more feasible option. And then the other, you know, huge part of being responsible for, you know, just being a responsible consumer is considering, of course, what happens after. Like, what are you doing with the items that you no longer want? Because unfortunately, so much of donated clothing is not being resold or reused in a thrift store, for example. A lot of it is just going to landfill. So I personally do not like to bring my stuff to be donated, because I'm just very worried that it won't be reused. So while it is a great option, and of course it's better to try and, you know, donate it than it is to throw it away. And donating, of course, you know, is great because it's supporting these secondhand stores and maybe helping supply clothing at a less expensive rate to a demographic that maybe needs that. But I just get so nervous. I kind of use donating as not necessarily a last resort, but it's low down there for me on my options. I would much rather find a friend or a family member that I can give it to directly, knowing that they want it and will take it and reuse it, or like reselling it on Poshmark. And when I say reselling it on Poshmark, I am getting rid of this stuff for honestly next to nothing. I'm not really making a lot of money on any of the things that I'm selling, like a few dollars here and there. But I feel much better about it because the person has gone out of their way to search for this item, and they've bought it. They've put money into it. They're not just going to throw away something that they've gone out and sought. You know, they've sought after this. Now they've paid money. Like, they're going to keep it. They're going to use it at least for a little bit. So I feel much better about getting rid of something in that regard. Again, because I just, you know, it was purchased with intention, and that's kind of the whole thing, is to just be more intentional about what you're doing, how you're getting rid of things, how you're buying things. So I think that is a great option. But I do want to say that I know some people kind of are like unsure about buying secondhand, kind of for what I mentioned a second ago about thrift stores, places like Goodwill being for a demographic that maybe can't afford to buy clothing at the new price tag. And I hear that. I think that's a valid concern. However, I just don't know if that's really happening as much as maybe we think it is. Like I said, clothing already is being, so much of it's already being donated to thrift stores that they are throwing stuff away. And like, you go to I've never been to a Goodwill that doesn't have clothing. Like, there's already so much clothing on this planet already that I just don't think that that's really what's happening. I will say, do I think that you should use thrift stores like fast fashion and use it to swap out your wardrobe every few months? No, I don't, and I don't want you to do that at all. But if there's something that you need, like you actually need it, and what I mean by need is like you live in a place where you get snow and you don't own a winter jacket, you need to go out and get a winter jacket, that sort of thing. Like, you need that for where you live. That's what I mean. Like, go to a thrift store and look for that item because you need it, not to use it so you can constantly swap out your wardrobe. I hope that makes sense. And I will say too that I suggest Poshmark, and Poshmark does kind of bother me a little bit. There are plenty of people on there who I think use it as a business, and everything that they sell is new with tags, and I tend to not, I don't buy anything on Poshmark anyway, but I tend to stay away from those accounts more because they are running it like a business, and I'm wondering where they're getting all of this stuff that's new with tags. I don't know, but I try to really support the people on there who are selling things secondhand and trying to do what I think it really should be used for, and that is buying and selling secondhand. So I try and share those those listings as much as I can, and share those people as much as I can, because there really is a lot of great stuff on Poshmark that you can buy that is secondhand. And I know I think there's plenty of other apps like that as well. And that is it for our Sustainability Sunday video today. I will just mention really quick that I have a full podcast episode about fast fashion and clothing waste, where I kind of get into even more detail, break down even more numbers, all of that thing. It's a little bit longer than this video will be, so I will link that down below too if you are interested in a little bit more of a deep dive than what we did today. But I hope this video at least got you thinking about being a little bit more responsible with buying and getting rid of your clothing, and just being a more responsible consumer in general, because this, that can apply to a lot more than just clothing. But I'll see you in the next video soon. Bye.